In this video, I'll show how you can use PaintMaker version 4 to prepare a photograph for painting, how to mix the paint and how to paint it, with a whole workflow that's easy and simple. For this demonstration, I've chosen to work with a black and white image. The process is the same for color images. First, I open my image in PaintMaker. Then I choose the colors I want to paint with. Here I'm using artist oils from Winsor & Newton. I add a few colors other than black and white to keep the gray tones neutral to look at. With the new function Split Image, you can split the image into the number of color layers you want to work with. When you get to the Split Image page, the image is automatically split into 32 layers. Blur is set to 2 to reduce the amount of detail. I guess 13 layers are enough to be able to paint the image naturalistically. By going back and forth between the split image and the original, I can see where I lack precision. When I click on a part on the original that I am missing in the split image, that color is added to the palette. I continue like this until I am satisfied. Now I think I have what I need, but with 16 colors. I want to see if there are colors that can be omitted. I do this by selecting a color and clicking on the pin icon to see where it is in the image and judge whether it can be omitted. To test how the image looks without the selected color, I click on the eye icon to disable it temporarily. If the color can be omitted, I click on the trash icon to delete it. I repeat the procedure until I don't have more colors that can do without. Now I am down to 13 colors again. I'll check if I'm satisfied. It looks acceptable. To move on, you must save and exit if you want to keep what you have done, or cancel and exit if you do not want to keep it. On the recipe page, the 13 colors in the palette are now ready to be calculated to recipes. You can calculate all the colors in the palette by clicking on Calculate All Uncalculated Recipes. You don't need to calculate recipes if you don't need them, then simply go directly to the Projector page without recipes. The color division into layers works equally well with and without recipes. Here I want to mix exactly according to recipes. If the lightness is accurate, the painting will appear naturalistic even with some inaccurate brushwork. After adding extra colors to the palette, it is important to sort the palette by lightness. I choose to have the darkest color as number 1 and the lightest as color 13. Before I go to mixing the colors, I check whether the amount of detail is usable, or whether I should thin them out. I do this by going to the Projector page and isolating a layer and judging whether I think the amount of detail is sufficient, or whether there's too many. Here I can do without the smallest details, so I have to go back to the Split Image page to change the noise reduction. When I set it to 4, it doesn't seem to reduce the overall impression. I save again and go to the recipe page to get back to the Projector page. Here I test whether the details are better now. Remember to save the project so you can come back to it later. Now I am ready to mix the paint. I use a Sartorius high-capacity microlab balance. You can also measure by part division, which is often quick and easier, but not quite as accurate. I have sped up the process here as it is a sleep-inducingly slow process, and I would be sorry if you lose interest before we get to painting. It takes me about 30 minutes to make the palette. Remember to number the colors on the palette so that you later use the right color for each layer when you project. Now the palette is finished. Now it's time to paint. The first thing I need to do is get the image to match the canvas in size. You can enlarge and reduce in many different ways. I first zoom in by scrolling with the mouse, or using 2 fingers on the trackpad. I drag with the mouse so that the image covers the canvas and use the plus and minus symbols in the bottom right corner of the screen to fine-tune. Not the plus and minus on your keyboard, as it zooms the browser itself in and out, which makes it difficult to get back to the current setting the next time you open the project. When I'm really close to the canvas format, I use the percentage field to adjust the size even more precisely. When I'm satisfied, I lock the position with the padlock icon. It's important to save the entire project, so you always can open it later and come back to exactly where you left. I copy the coordinates for the location, so I have the freedom to zoom in on the image if there are details I need to study more closely. When I need to get back to the right location, I just enter the coordinates into the field. Press Enter and lock the location again. I start with a lighter layer, where there is no danger of pulling dark colors into the light areas when I start to smooth out the paint. Here is the physical setup. And here, only the selected layer I have chosen to start with is visible. Before I paint, I grease the canvas with oil and wipe it with a cloth until it is not soaked in oil, but just saturated. This prevents the paint from settling too well where I put it on, so that I can later move it around. As a thinner, I use thistle oil with a little secretive drying agent in it. Here I also increase the speed as it is a slow process. I paint a little on the first layer so you can see how I do it. There are many ways to paint, and this is a method where the emphasis is not on applying the color, it just has to be done. When the paint is applied in the right places, the painting begins where I can brush the colors and here create the expression I want. Another method is to start shaping the expression already when applying the color. When I have finished applying all the light layers, I brush them together with a fine, flat, slightly larger Sable hairbrush. The brush is dry and completely clean. I brush with quite soft strokes, light enough that the paint does not settle in the brush. I mix the colors together to show how the precision in the lightness between the colors is what makes the face look lifelike. You don't have to mix the colors together, the painting will still look lifelike from a distance. Our brains are amazing at putting the image together themselves, ignoring the layering. Therefore, there is also a rich possibility for different expressions without sacrificing the lifelikeness. I should mention that here I have chosen to prepare and paint an image that only takes a few hours from start to when the painting is largely finished and only needs finishing touches. You can easily make a significantly more detailed painting and in color, but both the color mixing and the painting take much longer. When the light part has been brushed together to a point where I can work further after the dark layers have been applied without the risk of pulling the dark colors into the light part, I start applying the dark layers. Oops, a foreign object has crept onto the lip. I'll fix that when I get to fixing the details. Now I brush the dark layers together. Afterwards, I switch to a larger brush to brush larger parts together with light strokes. I brush short transitions together with a small, dry, flat Sable hairbrush. I switch between the small and large brush as needed. And finally, I use a large badger hairbrush to unify the painting. After that, I take a break where I assess what could be better. In order not to make an already long video even longer, I will just work on the lips that seem to need additional work. Normally I go back and forth on such a painting many times to adjust while the paint is still wet. There is a lot of adjustment left, but this is sufficient to demonstrate the workflow in PaintMaker 4.0. I hope it gives you a sense of a process that is easy to follow. There will be videos where I show other ways to paint from the same color layers later. I haven't documented the detail work as I paint details by eye, and that's not part of the procedure PaintMaker can help with. I move the projection of the image to the side of the canvas so I can judge what I want to do more clearly. This is the painting with more details added.